I think, Esper, you're with another account.
Yeah, I'll be speaking.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Nice, nice. So, well, welcome everybody. Today, Axelar is glad to share space with Kinesis Labs today. And, well, I think we should introduce ourselves and let's get started.
Yeah, thank you everyone so much for being here. Ian, could you mute? I'm getting some echo from your end. Great. So I'm Yorgos, one of the founders of Axelar Network, which is a universal interoperability solution connecting all major blockchain ecosystems. Soon to come Bitcoin, Ethereum, Avalanche, all major EVMs, and of course Axelar being built on the Cosmos SDK and compatible with IBC. It can connect all Cosmos compatible chains. I'm sure a lot of you have been following the Osmosis vote over the past few days, through which the community selected Axelar to be the primary bridging solution for Osmosis, and we're very excited to, take on this responsibility and bring new assets and new users over to the Cosmos ecosystem. And on the topic of this discussion, we're not just Osmosis. We want to support the wider Cosmos ecosystem. And we have here with us today Kinesis Labs, which I believe launched just yesterday. And I think one thing worth noting is that we've never talked before, so they're a completely anonymous team, but they've been a pleasure to work with, very easy to communicate. I think it's been always over Telegram, and we'll have some cool programs that will be launching next week. So very excited to have them on our AMA, and looking forward to hear more from them.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. Yeah, my name is Esper. I'm like the research lead at Kinesis, and yeah, we've been working with Axelar, kind of communicating on Telegram mainly, to kind of just discuss what the sort of partnership will look like. And they've been a great team. We love Axelar. And I guess as a brief explanation on Kinesis, Kinesis is the premier stablecoin exchange on Evmos. We are natively deployed on Evmos, so we can focus all our undivided attention and also our token emissions to the Evmos ecosystem. A brief explanation on Evmos for anyone who might not know. Evmos is the EVM compatible chain built on the Cosmos SDK. This means that it can kind of connect with the various EVM chains and also the Cosmos ecosystem. You can use MetaMask, you can use Kepler. There's so many different opportunities that you can kind of use, and things that can be built on top of Evmos. Kinesis, our goal is to kind of connect Evmos via EVM chains and also Cosmos chains via our unique multi-base pool system. What this means is that we'll be kind of partnering with bridges, partnering with networks such as Axelar to kind of focus on, bringing a lot of liquidity over and kind of mitigating a little bit of the risk for liquidity providers by using this kind of multi-base pool system. If you're bridging assets over via Axelar satellite, then you can kind of trust whichever bridge that you use, and you can kind of make sure that if you're providing liquidity on Kinesis, you won't really be affected by any of the security from other bridges. And we want to kind of maximize the liquidity flow into the Evmos ecosystem, and so we're kind of working with various different partners to kind of deliver high yields for anybody who's willing to kind of deposit their stables in Kinesis. To kind of explain more about that, we've been partnering with a lot of different various dexes on Evmos. We've also been partnering with lending platforms. We've been partnering with yield aggregators. There's going to be a lot of different things built on top of Kinesis that I'd love to kind of get into more further into this call.
Excellent. And I believe with Kinesis, your team just launched yesterday with the Evmos launched. And is this something people can actually go and try out even right now?
Yeah. So we currently have our testnet up, but we have not launched at the moment. We're going to launch very soon. We just kind of want to wait until people can actually claim the Evmos airdrop. Currently, you're not able to claim the Evmos airdrop right now. Evmos, because this is like their second time launching, they want to make sure everything is running smoothly. And so currently, what they've been doing is they're kind of rolling out in different phases. We're kind of ready to launch whenever we're ready, but we're kind of going to be launching around phase 2, when people can kind of claim their airdrop and actually start kind of providing liquidity, and kind of a lot of the liquidity might start flowing into the Evmos ecosystem around then.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a sensible approach. Absolutely no need to rush it. And what's interesting to me about Kinesis is that you're working with many different, let's call them bridge players, right? So maybe I'll let you mention some of the names yourself. Not sure what's confidential, but you've always be open to working with multiple teams, right? And sometimes we've seen this may lead to fragmentation, but there's also a lot of positives, right? In that you can include many different ecosystems, users of the different solutions, and for a stablecoin DEX especially, you can let users go from the stablecoins of one interoperability provider to another one, right? So would love to hear a bit more. What was the thought process that you followed to make that decision to work with multiple providers versus just one, as we've been seeing with some other solutions lately?
Yeah. To just name off the bridge solutions that we're kind of working with. We're currently announced our partnership with Nomad, Stellar, and Axelar, and in the future we kind of hope to see a little bit more to kind of a little bit more bridges kind of work to partner with us. I know Gravity Bridge recently made a proposal on their governance to kind of integrate with Kinesis as well. I think the reason why we kind of went for this approach is because, yes, as you kind of highlighted, it allows us to connect with various different ecosystems and various different chains. People also kind of have different bridges that they're more comfortable with using. Bridge security is something that is kind of not taken lightly these days. There was like the wormhole hack, and there's also the Ronin hack. Both multi-million-dollar hacks in the past year, and so we just want to make sure that people are very happy with and comfortable with the bridge that they use. Um, you know, so a liquidity provider can kind of choose whichever bridge that they use, that whichever solution that they want to go with. They will be kind of bridging over assets or sending over assets to Kinesis, and you can kind of deposit stables there. Liquidity fragmentation is definitely kind of an issue, but the way we kind of see of it is that since we are a stable swap, liquidity fragmentation is not as much of an issue as it might be for a DEX, right? Because we're using a stable swap invariant, which means that it's kind of using a mixture between constant product and constant sum market making formulas. And so what this kind of highlights is we kind of have a little bit more freedom and a little bit more flexibility when it comes to the amount of liquidity that we necessarily need to kind of transfer large sums of stable coins. And so this is kind of the approach we've taken. We want to kind of be bridge agnostic and kind of support whichever bridge that users and the market decides to use, and the ones that they kind of trust the most. We're very happy to kind of work with various different solutions and various different networks to kind of provide the the most optimal way to kind of integrate with Kinesis and kind of leverage our position on Evmos as the premier stable swap that that allows users flexibility and optionality on whatever they want to do.
Cool. And I think another great point to make here is that Kinesis is not just a DEX of Evmos, right? It's part of the wider Cosmos ecosystem, and soon it's going to be, I guess, part of the wider blockchain ecosystem. So the way I think about it is that we're moving towards a stage in the growth of the blockchain ecosystem where we'll start thinking more about applications, right, rather than blockchain ecosystem. So with the rise of the interchain and all the interoperability solutions that will make it very easy to access users from different chains, Kinesis will be able to tap into the users of Osmosis, of Secret Network, of Avalanche, Terra, and many, many more blockchains. So having all those different assets will enable users, in a sense, to move easily across those different blockchains and maybe Kinesis can let users, swap between the different versions of the stable coins on the backend, right? So I think there's actually some bigger implications besides the Evmos ecosystem itself, just because right now it's so easy, especially within the Cosmos ecosystem, to become a user of an app on Evmos, even though you've been using Osmosis or you've been using like Terra. So don't know if you've thought about that, but that's something very fascinating to me, that we're transitioning to a state where applications won't necessarily be siloed to a certain ecosystem, but will be able to service the wider Web3 and every user that's in the space.
Yeah, that's exactly kind of what we envision as well. One of the features that we've kind of think is that there's for a lot of these different dexes that are going to be built on top of Evmos, they are also trying to kind of bridge the gap between different chains and kind of have like the kind of build into the multi-chain future. But one thing that we can kind of see is that um, various protocols can kind of be built on top of Kinesis. For instance, if in the future um, there can be kind of swap aggregators that kind of swap between, for instance, maybe Nomad ETH and Axelar ETH, and there won't really be a pool that is Nomad ETH and Axelar ETH on one of these dexes, right? There probably won't be enough liquidity. There also might not just be the pair, and so what we kind of envision is that in the future, with all these protocols kind of being built on top of Kinesis, what we can see is someone can swap Nomad ETH for Nomad USDC, and then Nomad USDC for Axelar USDC, and then swap Axelar USDC for Axelar ETH in the background. So you can kind of do all these different things, and we definitely see a kind of like a future of that as well.
Then it would probably be fair to say that Kinesis will become kind of a fungibility hub, right, for Evmos, so that users, one application maybe adopts like Nomad assets, another adopts like, I don't know, Axelar, another Seller assets, and you'll be able to move in and out of different applications without actually having to think about it, right? And what would be really cool is if we can abstract away this layer completely from the user, right? So Kinesis, like, you can allow users with one click to move from the assets of one application to the assets of the other application. So I thought actually we hadn't discussed this before. So very happy that that you are also aligned towards this vision. That sounds like the correct direction. Awesome. And I know, not sure how much you can say about it, but I know you're partnered with certain stable coins beyond the traditional stable coins from Ethereum, and you have some interesting announcements around those. So not sure how much you can share here because maybe we've been discussing this confidentially, but would love to hear about some of those partnerships as well.
Yeah, would love to kind of touch on that. And so initially we'll be kind of working a lot of the stable coins that will be in Kinesis will be USDC and USDT and DAI, kind of like the big three, the more popular stable coins on Ethereum. However, we kind of see that since we're kind of building in the Cosmos ecosystem, there's going to be a large amount of UST liquidity that we can also work with, and also Frax is one of the has recently partnered with Evmos, and they kind of want to create like a dominant footing and kind of create like a baseline where Frax can kind of be one of the more popular coins in the Evmos ecosystem. So we're currently talking with Frax and Terra, or more specifically LFG, to kind of ensure that there can be a lot of liquidity and a lot of incentives kind of headed over to Kinesis and Evmos as a whole. As some of you might know, LFG has recently made a governance proposal about kind of supporting a lot of the protocols on top of Evmos. There's currently, I believe, around 1.3 million in incentives kind of lined up, and obviously, if the liquidity of UST kind of increases, they're willing to kind of up that and kind of make that around like 3 million in UST incentives. So there's going to be a lot of incentives and a lot of liquidity flowing our way, and it won't just be the more typical stablecoins you might see. There's going to be Frax and UST kind of headed our way, and they're kind of making a very big push. Recently you've kind of seen the DeFi landscapes kind of change from like the typical 3 pool to the 4 pool. Currently, Kinesis will kind of be starting off with the 3-pool. But in the future, we definitely see a way where the 4-pool is kind of more integrated with the Kinesis ecosystem.
Yeah, we're also particularly excited about Frax, and the Axelar team will also push a proposal over the coming weeks to be able to mint into the canonical Frax contracts on the various chains. Axelar is also the first interoperability platform to bridge over to various Cosmos chains. We set up a couple of a 4-pool actually I think 2 weeks ago on the Frontier front end on Osmosis, which may or may not be migrated over to the main front end. I guess we'll have to talk with the Osmosis team moving forward, but yeah, I think it's very, very exciting to have more decentralized stable coins, and this really aligns with the ethos of the Cosmos ecosystem, right? So I think it's going to be great to have the 2 major ones in the Cosmos ecosystem, and more because there's many new teams now launching their own stable coins, and it's just fascinating to see, right, how Terra kickstarted this, and now everyone is following and doing their own algorithmic stable coins, and it seems that a lot of those are going to be successful. Like the near one is a very interesting experiment, so looking forward to bridge more of them over into Evmos and the Cosmos ecosystem. And yeah, I think with Kinesis, that's all very exciting, right? I had not realized. I know we talked about it earlier, but I had not realized that you're also going to be doing a stable swap for ETH and some of these other major assets that are going to be bridged over by various solutions. So yeah, I need to think a bit more about how we can leverage that, but that really will help with the user experience across the ecosystem. So yeah, great that you're forward thinking. Awesome, man. I think you covered most of the bases here for Kinesis. We also have a program that maybe we'll wait until the official announcement, but we'll also be bringing some liquidity over in the coming week hopefully. And yeah, maybe here, Esper, happy to take some questions from you as well. I don't know if we have some people from your community, but would love to tell them a bit more about Axelar and how we think about the interoperability landscape.
Yeah, would love to ask some questions. I think one thing that some of the people in our community might not know is, I guess, how do all these different bridges or bridging solutions kind of differ? For instance, Axelar is the cross-chain interoperability network. Kind of if you can kind of touch more on that and how you guys are different, what kind of security you guys use. Yeah.
Great. Let me take a step back, I guess, to the origins of the interoperability narrative. So I'd say 4 or 5 years ago, the first projects that thought about interoperability were Cosmos and Polkadot, right? And what's great about Cosmos and Polkadot, maybe I'll focus on Cosmos since it's a more familiar example for a lot of people in this podcast, is that you can connect chains directly. Any chain that launches using the Cosmos SDK is compatible right out of the box with IBC, and it can interoperate directly with any other chain that is part of the Cosmos ecosystem and is built on the Cosmos SDK. Now, with IBC, there have been some initiatives to also build it outside of the Cosmos ecosystem. There have been some discussions to have it integrated into Ethereum and some other EVMs. But this is very, very hard to do, and we take a long time. It's probably the end state of everything, but will take a very long time. And so in the meantime, we saw some other interoperability solutions popping up that were way more centralized, right? The first successful one was WBTC on Ethereum, where you effectively hand your Bitcoin over to a custodian, and they mint a wrapped asset representation of that BTC over on the Ethereum side. And more recently, we started seeing some evolutions of this design in some federated multi-sigs. These are centralized solutions with some higher redundancy, but effectively what happens is all those solutions, they handpick a fixed set of validators, and those this limited set of validators is responsible for passing messages. So it's still a custodian solution. And Axelar really is the only solution that can connect, all EVM chains together, including Bitcoin, including Cosmos, and is actually decentralized in the sense that instead of having a custodian securing the cross-chain communication, you have a decentralized network of validators that is based on the Cosmos SDK. The only way we know to decentralize any set of validators is through proof of stake. So that's the only model that has worked in practice. And that's why we picked the Cosmos SDK to create a blockchain. So every time, say, you go from Avalanche over to Ethereum through Axelar, 2/3 of the Axelar validators have to approve this transaction. And what's also very cool about this is that we get a bonus in that because we have the Cosmos SDK, we can connect to every Cosmos blockchain through IBC. So as new blockchains are getting launched that are IBC compatible, Axelar can be there day one and bring cross-chain compatibility to all the users of that blockchain. And another unique feature of Axelar is that it is an end-to-end solution, right? It's not pairwise like basically everything else. Once a new chain is connected to Axelar, it plugs into the whole ecosystem of chains, right? So there's some cool network effects. And when Evmos is going to be added in the coming days through IBC, it will get access to assets from Avalanche, from Osmosis, from Ethereum, and so on. And this has some very cool advantages in that Axelar network in the middle can act as a routing layer so that you don't have to do these pairwise connections. It can act as a translation layer if different blockchains like speak different VMs and so on.
Yeah, honestly, it was just so great to kind of hear more about Axelar and what you guys do. I know a lot of our community members, they haven't really had a lot of experience, using different bridges and kind of using different ways to interact with different chains. And so it's definitely a concern for a lot of people to kind of, use different solutions. And so, love kind of hearing about what Axelar is doing and what you guys are doing. And yeah, I guess another question is, I guess I know that Axelar kind of mentions that there's a lot of different ways or a lot of different ideas that can be built on top of Axelar as well. I know you guys have like the developer grant program as well, so allowing people to kind of utilize Axelar's SDK. Can you kind of touch on more about that and like what you kind of envision in the future?
Exactly. So this is a great extension of the previous question. So I think for the past year, when people have been talking about interoperability, they think of bridges, right? Where a bridge can be one of two things, and people often conflate them. So we do need to do better on the education side there. But people effectively talk about bridging assets from one chain to the other, right? Either wrapping them or swapping assets. But Axelar itself is not a bridge, right? It is an interoperability platform, meaning that applications can leverage its stack, its SDK, to build cross-chain applications, right? So for example, with Kinesis, by launching on a single chain, Evmos, and having all the logic of your application over there, you will be able to tap into cross-chain functionality with other chains that's not just about asset transfers, right? So for example, you could, I guess, the easiest example is again asset transfers, right? But you will be able to compose this liquidity layer with other applications, right? For example, if Axelar wants to move an asset from Ethereum over to Avalanche through Kinesis, right? We could effectively bridge it over to Kinesis, like do a swap into some other asset that is interesting for Avalanche, move it over to Avalanche, and then have the user do another operation over there. So let's say, for example, maybe I'll pick a particular example. Let's say your user wants to buy an NFT over on Avalanche. And the NFT market on Avalanche is denominated in USD, but the user holds USDC on Ethereum. Right? Through Axelar, you could basically route the USDC over to Kinesis, swap it on behalf of the user for USD, route the USD over to Avalanche, and then buy the NFT. Right? So you can do much more interesting like composability that goes beyond just swapping assets. And this really enables users to access very similar user experience to, I'd say, what we have to Web 2 today, right? So in Web 2 today, when I go on a web page, I don't have to think about the backend and all the infrastructure layers behind. These are abstracted away completely from me. We can actually do something very similar where in Web3, for example, you can buy an NFT on one chain with an asset on a different chain, and the user can do this with one click without actually have to go through all the intermediate hoops, transferring over, swapping, transferring over, buying. So I think we'll start seeing a lot more of that over the coming year as interoperability solutions mature, and also developers understand all those possibilities, in the ecosystem.
Yeah, definitely. I think the NFT idea or NFT explanation was a very good explanation. I guess like to kind of expand on that further, does this mean that, in the future you might see people, you can, if I'm on the Avalanche ecosystem and a new ecosystem like Evmos launches, would I be able to kind of swap my AVAX for Evmos, without having to do anything in the background? Axelar is the one who kind of handles everything in the background.
This will actually be able to do, if you like to do that, we can do that in a week, actually. That's going to be very easy. Yeah, you need to set up liquidity somewhere, but that's actually extremely simple. We have a team from our community that built that for some ecosystems, and they sent it to me just yesterday. So maybe we should actually integrate it into the Osmosis, the Kinesis front end, also the Osmosis front end. But yeah, that's one feature that we definitely like to build out.
Yeah. I think it's a great feature. And I think definitely one of the hardships for people kind of entering new ecosystems is, I guess, how do I have access to Evmos if I wasn't able to kind of qualify for the rec drop, right? So this is something that, for new people, this could be definitely a way to kind of, enter the Evmos ecosystem before, you can buy maybe Evmos on a centralized exchange or Osmosis. Before that's available, if this is a way, then anyone can kind of join the Evmos ecosystem without even having qualifying for the Evmos airdrop. This is definitely something that's very interesting.
Exactly, yeah, and I think that's gonna be the first use case. Just one click on ramps, so that any user that goes to an Evmos application can enter the ecosystem seamlessly in one transaction. They don't have to go to a different front end to figure this out. And yeah, I think this should be honestly integrated on the front end of every application, just because it's so confusing right now, right? When you look at the new ecosystem, it's just very, very hard as a user to onboard to that ecosystem. So we need a simple front end, buy the gas token of that application, of that chain. And yeah, I think we should discuss offline and figure out a way to integrate this, over the coming 1-2 weeks. Because yeah, this is really going to be useful. And we want, especially in the early days when there's no Evmos liquidity for people on exchanges, people will have a hard time. So we want to make the experience as smooth as possible for them.
Well, we gotta thank both of you guys for the great conversation that we've been having. We have, I believe, time for one more intervention. So I would just like to ask what both of you see as the future of stablecoin interoperability, since we've been talking so much about it, and the role that both Kinesis and Axelar will play for it.
Yeah, I could start off. I guess why we think this huge migration of stablecoins, specifically ERC20 stablecoins, will kind of enter the Evmos ecosystem, is because since Evmos is EVM compatible, this means that a lot of different projects, a lot of different existing projects can kind of come onto the Evmos ecosystem, and you'll kind of see a birth of DeFi expansion in the constant ecosystem. What this means is that for DeFi to kind of be built, there kind of needs to be a base layer, and usually those are DEXs, and specifically stablecoin DEXs. A lot of different yield strategies are kind of built on top of stablecoins. borrowing, lending, those are kind of built on top of stablecoins as well. A lot of people do yield farm or leveraged stablecoin yield farming. They, on Aave and Compound, one of the most popular borrowed assets and supplied assets are stables. And so this is kind of a future we see, as Evmos kind of allows DeFi to thrive. A lot of it will be built on top of Kinesis. And one of the main ideas is, since Evmos is EVM compatible and also kind of interoperable with the Cosmos ecosystem, there's going to be a lot of different liquidity coming from a lot of different chains. And so Kinesis, we want to do our best to kind of make sure that not only are the risks siloed based on the bridging solution that you choose, but also it's still interoperable with the with other stable coins and other wrapped versions of stable coins. To kind of touch on that, how this is possible is we're going to be using UST as like the meta pool, as the routing asset that you can kind of bridge between, or that you can swap between one wrapped asset and another wrapped asset. So if you have Nomad USDC, you can swap for UST, and then swap UST for Axelar USDC. So that's kind of like the way we want to make sure that these stable coins are interoperable with each other, but there's still that sort of underlying siloed risk that you can kind of choose whichever bridge or whichever wrap stable coin you want to hold.
Yeah, that's an excellent take. I could not have put it better myself. And yeah, to me personally, it's clear for many reasons that there's going to be a multitude of stable coins. And I think Kinesis is gonna be a huge part of this this evolution in the ecosystem, just because people will need a very simple way to move in and out of different stable coins, even without actually having to know that they're moving in and out, right? But it should happen completely abstracted away on the back end. So that's one of the reasons why I'm very excited to be working with your team, and a lot of amazing things to come. So thank you so much for taking the time to explain your vision today for our community, and everyone stay tuned. I think we already mentioned some of the features that are coming, but yeah, I'm sure we'll do a lot of great work over the coming year with the Kinesis team.
Great. Esper, Esper, Yorgos, thank you so much for today. And yeah, great talk, everyone.